families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Sadly, too many know the pain and trauma associated with parental and grandparent alienation. Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, will present an important international virtual conference on October the 13th through the 15th, 2023. The conference, entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse, will feature world-renowned experts in the field of alienation. You'll join the conference event coordinator, Elaine Cobb, and moderator, Megan Hunter, as they introduce you to keynote speaker, Dr. Edward Kruk. Plus, you'll hear important presentations from Dr. Joshua Coleman, Lisa Rothfuss, Dr. Mary Alvarez, Chris Smith, Bill Eddy, Dr. Noelle Hunter, Dr. Sue Kornblum, Dr. William Burnett, Megan Hunter, and Jordan Traeger. Join the many attendees already securing their spot for the conference entitled Alienation, The Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. For information, visit familyaccess.info for all the details. The special conference is being hosted by Family Access, Fighting for Children's Rights, Steel Partners Foundation, and PACA, Parental Alienation is Child Abuse.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hello, everyone, and we want to thank you for being with us in this episode of Families Divided TV. In this episode, we are extremely pleased to have with us Dr. Noelle Hunter. Dr. Hunter is the president and founder of iStand Parent Network Incorporated. This is an extremely important organization. I want you guys to pay very close attention to this episode tonight. It is really going to be something we all need to know more about and understand. Dr. Hunter and I just connected with each other last summer. I'm so grateful that God brought us together. And we are so pleased that we can be just a little piece of what she's doing, if in anything, just getting the information out there. She is busy all the time in her work, plus her regular job. And the families that she's helped, I think I read it was 54 that she had done well. It could be more than that now. The last I looked, that was the number. And it's extremely important. I know many of you share the videos and episodes that we have of Families Divided on your social media. I want to encourage you, even if this one has nothing to do with your situation, I want to encourage you to please share this with anything and everything that you use in social media. Please. It is vitally important we get this out. We had Jeffrey Morehouse on, you remember, and he did an excellent presentation. We were so pleased. We're actually going to try to get him and Dr. Hunter together to do one, and we hope that happens in the near future. But I just want to share a little bit about Dr. Hunter, and then I'm going to ask her some questions. Again, please Pay close attention. Even take notes if you think you should. There could be someone out there that you know that could be going through this, and you didn't realize that's what this was about. And there could be someone that is going through it themselves, and they're like, this is someone that can help me. So please, that's why it's important we share this. And so please take the time to share this. It's so important. But anyway, as I've already told you, Dr. Hunter, she is the president and co-founder of iStand Network Incorporated. It's an NGO that empowers parents to recover their children from international parent-child abduction and advocates for public policy reform to prevent and end this horrible crime against children and families. Dr. Hunter co-founded iStand Parent Network after successfully recovering her daughter personally from an abduction to Mali in 2014. So she herself knows and experienced this hell on earth of her child being abducted from her. And I know you realize most of your children are here in the US or in the country you're watching this in. Well, there's many whose children, like you heard Jeffrey talk about Japan with his son, that are in another country, and it seems that no one wants to help. But let me explain to you, iStand Network does want to help. So we're going to really delve into this tonight. So please, I hope you'll pay close attention. So Dr. Hunter, I want to welcome you, and I am so grateful that we finally have the opportunity to have this one-on-one together. I've really been looking forward to it, and I want to publicly thank you for the work that you do and the mission field that you have, that God uses you in helping these families. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you so much, Elaine. I also feel immensely blessed, immeasurably grateful to be here with you tonight and to share some of my own personal experience and how that led to iStand's organization and evolution, and being able to help other families who go through this excruciating problem of international parental child abduction. We call ourselves the club that nobody wants to be in. No one wants to experience this, but there is a network of us through iStand and through some of our coalition partners like Jeffrey, whom you mentioned, who we really get and meet parents and families where they are and help them to recover their children, and then to deal with the effects of their children being separated from them. So this opportunity with you is just right on time for that.
I am so grateful. I know when we met last summer and I was in your conference, I spoke at your conference, and yes, my eyes were opened so much, and my heart, because I'm like, and then seeing your daughter and another young lady, yes, it was remarkable how, they have just totally evolved through this situation. And I am really grateful again that we had that opportunity. But I want you to explain to us, if you would, Dr. Hunter, what is International Parent-Child Abduction, or IPCA?
Sure. Thank you so much. That's the defining question. And maybe I could define it and then briefly share my lived experience, what it looks like in practice.
Please.
And so International Parental Child Abduction, by this US State Department's definition, is the unlawful removal of a child from their country of habitual residence, and they are typically taken to another country. We do deal primarily with children who have been removed from the United States, but we deal with children who have been, or deal with families whose children have been removed from other countries. And so they're unlawfully removed from their country of habitual residence and taken to a foreign nation. Often that is in violation of some pre-existing custodial order, but more often we're finding that there doesn't even have to be a custodial order in place for children to be taken out of the country. And some people say, well, can a parent really kidnap their child? Yes, absolutely they can. Because as well as IPCA being International Parental Child Abduction, I'll refer to it as IPCA, as well as it being a crime of the heart, it's also a federal crime in the United States under the International Parental Kidnapping Statute. And so bottom line, a child is taken away from their parent their other side of the family, the communities in which they have grown up in, their schools, all of their connections, and they're taken to a foreign nation where typically they've never been. They don't speak the language. They don't know the other side of the family. And they begin to be told things about the family that they've been taken from that perpetuates both the abduction and the alienation. And so before I tell you just a little bit about kind of my lived example of that, I just want to be very clear that international parental child abduction, by definition, is parental alienation. By definition, because a child is taken away and there is a barrier, a physical barrier, a geographic barrier put between them and the other parent and family. By definition, it's alienation. And I'm so glad for this opportunity to, have this conversation with you and help your audience and supporters make this connection. And so then just very briefly, I can tell you international parental child abduction and how it happened to me and my daughter. And you mentioned my wonderful daughter who's 14, about to be 15. And in the conference that you were so gracious to speak at, she was one of the youth survivors who spoke there about her experience, both with abduction and alienation and the effects on her. And that was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, she's been home for 10 years by God's grace and a lot of hard work. So when she was just 4 years old, she was taken from our home in Morehead, Kentucky. She was a baby. She wasn't even in kindergarten yet. My marriage to her father had broken down, and her father disagreed with the joint custody order. And we knew that he was a threat to take her because he just did not want to comply with any of the judge's rulings. So the judge ordered that I keep her passport, but he wound up taking her anyway when he had her over the holiday visitation period, and he was able to get a passport from his home country. And so for the next 2.5 years, I worked with the State Department, the Department of Justice, the government of the nation of Mali in West Africa, where she was taken. I staged protests in front of the embassy. I had calling campaigns in Washington. I laid my very life down to bring my daughter home. And again, by God's grace, she came home. And out of that experience, all that I learned, all that other parents have learned, we formed iStand Parent Network, because you said something really important earlier. Sometimes we feel like there's no help coming. Our governments at the local, the state, the federal level, even internationally, don't always respond on this issue. So we knew, like that families have to get together and do it ourselves. And so iStand evolved from that. And now we fight to reunite families and to educate about international parental child abduction.
I'm telling you, again, going back to your conference last year, the blessing it was. I still talk about that, and watching other families, not even just your precious daughter, who is just, beautiful inside and out. And I don't just throw out compliments. Those that know me know I'm straight, but she really is. And to see your love for these other children and how you interacted with them through several segments of that was truly a blessing. And to see the family unit that you guys have all conformed to have. And I was just like so touched that you really get involved with these families, and you really become as one unit to try to help and grow each other, not just their own families. They want to help each other. And you could see that so much. And the encouragement and support that your iStand network gives is amazing to me, because it's needed through all of alienation, but yours really spoke to my heart, and how y'all guys work together. And I remember there was a segment there where you guys were up dancing, and you got up and were dancing with them.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
It was so precious. And then I'm gonna start crying. I already kind of like broke down almost twice already, but just like when your daughter was speaking, and just a mama bear in you, and I was like, it was wonderful, and to see the love and the compassion that you have for what she went through and how you fought for your child. And seriously, all of us have to fight, no matter what situation you're in regarding alienation or abduction. You can't sit back and expect somebody else to take care of it. Right. You got to stand up and fight and do your part and everything you can
Mhm.
to make it happen.
And when
So,
that happens, people come alongside you. This whole network that we
mhm,
have was one parent linking with one parent and a grandparent and a survivor and an uncle and an aunt and all of them, because abduction and alienation are family. They affect whole families. We are,
mhm.
of course, most interested in protecting and nurturing and helping our children heal, but everybody hurts because of this. And so I'm glad that one of the things that I think iStand has organically done is hope, create and transmit hope that you absolutely have to stand up for ourselves. We do, and people will link on, but there's hope on the other side, because
Mhm.
that you mentioned, the up and dancing, those are all youth survivors who have come home and are still addressing the challenges of alienation. In fact, the other presenter with my daughter, I'm still in contact with her, and the long reach of parental alienation affects her still, and she's been from her abduction about 3 or 4 years now, and she can still, it's very palpable and raw. And that's why our network and our work is so important. Alienation and parental abduction, they're so devastating for children and families, but again, there's hope on the other side, and we have to keep pressing till we get there.
Yes, and the support that you give each other is so
Mhm.
important in going
Mhm.
through all of this. So I'm really happy that y'all have that. Um, can you tell me how IPCA and parental alienation are really related more? I know you've gone into it just a little bit, but can you kind of go a little bit more into it?
Absolutely. So my opening line was, by definition, international parental child abduction is parental alienation, because at the most basic and foundational level, and then we'll talk about some of those overt and nuanced indicators that they're connected and tied together. By definition, when a child or children are separated from a primary attachment figure, that space in between is where alienation starts to foster, grief and misunderstanding and getting information told to children about the parent on the other side that's inaccurate or false or hurtful. It begins there, because children will immediately, after kind of the nuance of being in a new place is worn off, they want to know, when we're going home, where is mom or where is dad? And then the alienator begins to engage in those behaviors that are well documented, by both all who have appeared on this wonderful show and what we know about parental alienation. And so the abductor will begin, while the child is abducted, begin to engage in behaviors that begin to create false narratives about the other parent in order to bring allegiance and loyalty to the taking parent. They will begin to create new environments that may or may not be healthy in order to have the child break their attachments and separations to their former life. They will begin to tell stories about that family as a way to cause and sow seeds of doubt about, does the other parent love me? If they really did, why wouldn't they come get me? And that, by the way, that's a very common one when we talk about abducting parents and kind of the alienating behaviors. They tell your children, your mom or dad could come and visit you at any time, but they don't. That is absolutely false. If for no other reason, very few parents who experience this can pick up and go to another country and visit their children, even if they were allowed to. And so these false narratives and misconceptions are very crucial to maintaining abduction. And we know that these are primary behaviors in alienation as well. And so those are just some initial ties that bind, but at the core of those is the alienating parent taking specific action to maintain the geographic separation, now by creating mental separations or creating resentment against the other parent for various reasons. And so we know that those are tactics that are common in both, and one couldn't exist without the other. So those are some general indicators that alienation is occurring. And maybe I could just give you an example of what it looks like on the other side, because we, by again, by God's grace and lots of hard work and community that you spoke of, we've been able to see children come home. They don't always come home like my daughter. who just came home full of grace, even though she had been through some traumatic experiences that I'm still learning about as she gets more comfortable sharing 10 years later. I'm thinking of a case in which there were a number of children, and I don't want to give too many details so I don't reveal their identity. So there were a number of children who were taken by one parent from the United States to a foreign nation. And that seeking parent, the one that's who we call the parent who's trying to return them back, she was incredible in working with government and her community and leaving no stone unturned to return her children home. They were not happy when she was finally able to bring them home. They resented her. They had been told things about her. And even though they were in an awful situation in the country that they were in, just the basic deprivations that they experienced on a daily basis. When they came home, they were very angry and very resentful, and they didn't want to be there. They wanted to go back into the dangerous situation. And the mother, who had prepared herself for it by understanding the tactics of alienators, was able to patiently, over the course of a couple of years, love her children through their behaviors. And they began to see, as children will, the truth of the matter. And so it has far-reaching effect while children are in abduction and even when they come home.
Yeah, the brainwashing effect is horrible, yes. And it's a cult. It's exactly what it is, and that affects all who are alienated, and not even just young children, but even the adult children.
Absolutely.
And then you spoke of, they didn't want to come back, and they were angry. Do they have to go through a reunification process when this happens?
That is a wonderful question, and you've actually pointed out one of the gaps in our systems when it comes to how we help our government and then those non-governmental organizations, how we help families when they're fortunate enough to be reunited. There's not a standard reunification process in place. And we advocate that there should be, at least at the federal level, that basic amounts of resources are devoted to the reunification. Because when those children came home, their mom had to, with our support and other support, had to put it together herself. What do my children need? Of course, they immediately went into therapy, and that helped out a lot. And we're big on therapy for everyone. It's so, so important. But she had to, of her own volition, I had to, of my own volition, before iStand started, figure out, how do I reunite? How do I delicately reintroduce my daughter into this world, this society? How do I not ask too many questions? All of those things. And so it's such a wonderful question that you've asked, because it's when iStand began to pivot. And so parents were our primary constituency, but more and more we are creating this cohort and opportunities for survivors for their immediate reunification and then their long-term reunification needs. And the one that I'm super excited about is we have our Survivor Summer Camp coming up in July here in beautiful Alabama. And so right now we have 9 survivors, anywhere between 8 and 18, and we expect up to 12, because it's a lifelong reunification is a lifelong process as well. So we're having to do it ourselves, but we're doing it.
And when you speak I understand totally. And when you speak of all of this, I'm sure the cost is great, and of having all this happen. I know even like over the holidays, you were out of the country, not home with your family. I'm sorry if you didn't want me to share this, but that touched my heart as well. You were out of the country during the holidays, not home with your family, but helping another family get to their children. And boom, it was like overnight you were gone, and I'm like, wow. And so I know the cost must be great. I want to know if there's a way that some of our people that are viewing can contribute to what you're doing and help, because their prayers, of course, is number one. To be praying, nothing's more important than that. But also monetarily, this costs major. What you do, a lot of people have it where it's in another state and in their country, or area, but you're going across the world, So how can they help in your organization? And you've not asked, I want this known that this was not one of our questions, but
Wow.
the Lord has laid this on my heart, but you guys really need help, and we're going to contribute. So I'm hoping that others will. So can you give us the way that we can contribute, Dr. Hunter, to your organization in helping these families and you and this heavy expense that you guys have?
Okay, thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate that. And we rarely put out public appeals for money, but we always need it because we always have families who are in need of our services. And so if I could just give you and your supporters and audience and those viewing a snapshot of the cost, because gosh, aren't you hitting on every fundamental point? So if you imagine, and you said so when your child is abducted, very often you have to go through legal processes in both this nation and the nation that we're abducted. So that's 2 attorneys here domestically. And we all know that legal fees in this nation are incredibly difficult to bear unless you are well-heeled. And by the way, I've even known well-heeled parents to spend themselves into near poverty on this expensive issue. So heavy investment, number 1, is your attorney in the home country. And then in the country of abduction, you typically have to retain legal counsel. And that's if you can get one that is credible, because we don't live there. We didn't live in those countries. And so it's very challenging to identify an attorney. And if you do, it's not going, whether there is a Hague process, like a treaty process to return the children, or some civil remedy, it takes going back and forth to court. If you are so fortunate as to be able to return your children, you're going to make a trip to that country at least 1 time, maybe twice, and you're paying for it out of your own pocket. In my case, I had wonderful, wonderful supporters who helped to offset the cost of twice I went to Mali before my daughter came home. And so when they come home, there is some help from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. If you're successfully able to bring your children home, they can help with the return. But when they come home, most parents don't have a lot to give to them because they've spent every dime bringing them home. And so the way that I believe your supporters might be most effective is to donate to our survivors. And there's the survivor initiatives. And the main one, of course, is the survivor camp. And they could just go to iStandParentNetwork.com/camp, iStandParentNetwork.com/camp, and they can donate. And why do I advocate for that one out of all of the needs? Is because these are the babies that have come home. These are the ones we are definitely still fighting for, those who are not, but these are the ones that have come home. And like we said earlier, we've had to build their reunification resources. And we had the first camp last year. It was one of the most beautiful expressions I had ever seen. These young campers between 8 and the oldest was 18, boys and girls, they made these bonds. They still communicate today. And that's a missing piece, because it's one thing to come home to your parent, to go back to your school, or maybe to go to another school, to remember your stuff at home. But it's another thing to have other survivors who get you. And so our survivor camp, in addition to s'mores and campfires and all those good things, it's giving them a chance to make friends for a lifetime. And so thank you so much for the opportunity. And I know people always want specificity in their giving. They cannot make a better investment in survivors than to support our summer camp.
Well, that's definitely good. And we're going to go ahead and add that on here. We'll get Cameron to put that on there as well. And we'll also put it on our YouTube channel for them to be able to do that with a link. So thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Can you share some of your experiences working with families who are surviving IPCA and parental alienation?
Sure. I gave a couple of highlights. I think I'll come back to, I can give you 2 or 3 really really clear examples. So I'll come back to the mother who was able to return her children from abduction, and they were in pretty challenging circumstances. And so again, when they came home again, they were very angry. They had been brainwashed, was the term that you had used. They were resentful against their mother. They didn't understand, why they were abruptly removed from their father. And so iStand, we began to come alongside this mom and just be there to listen. Because at a certain point, this mom, confided, I don't understand. We moved heaven and earth to bring them home, and they're acting like this. And so we were able to first listen, because sometimes that's just all we need. Because she knew that she was not gonna budge from supporting her children and doing everything that she needed to help them to have a successful continuing reunification. But she just needed to talk. And so, like you said earlier, the support network was really, really important for her, to talk to me, to talk to other parent survivors, and importantly, to encounter gratitude by talking to parents who don't yet have their children home. Because on those very difficult days when those children were just acting out of their pain, it would have been tempting for her to be resentful herself. But faced with another parent who doesn't have their children, those emotions quickly subsided to gratitude. And so, that's one good example. And we're still involved in that family's life today. And, it's very important when alienation is present to give the children an opportunity apart from the parent to kind of talk about how they are. And so iStand for those children in that family and for others twice a year at the survivor camp. And then in Washington, D.C., during our annual conference, we have a youth track. No parents allowed. There are, of course, the parents are there with them and they're all in the hotel and we have events together. But for 3 days, again, they get to travel with their own cohort, seeing the sites in Washington, D.C., doing art therapy and what we call brave space with some therapeutic interventions. And so, that family and others benefit from this wraparound family approach. It's very, very important that, again, family abduction and parental alienation, it's a family affair. And so in that family and others, we kind of wrap around them. There's a case that I'm dealing with right now in which, I don't mean to say dealing with, that's not what I meant. There's a case that we are working with this family right now in which the returned child would like to go back to the abducting parent. And her family is confounded. And it requires some accountability on the part of her family as well, because it makes us all kind of sick and it makes us all kind of crazy. And so even when a child comes home, like those effects of alienation and abduction continue. And so we're having some heart-to-hearts about why would she feel this way? And how can we wrap around her? How can we wrap around you to get through this and to create healing strategies to diminish that desire to return to harmful circumstances? And so that's another one. And then there's one that's not an abduction, but it is an alienation. And I'll kind of end with this one. There's a wonderful dad that we are working with, just a peachy guy, sweet as sugar, very much loves his children, wants to be there for their homework and their games and all of those things. But because of relationship breakdown, the mother is taking great pains to subtly engage in subtle alienation, changing the kids' cell phone numbers without letting the dad know. And so the dad is sending all of these texts and thinking that the children are mad at him, when in fact, there's no communication. And then just other behaviors are occurring like that. And for that father, we are encouraging him to recognize the behaviors and go to court, because the courts can be a solution here. It doesn't have to permanently result in alienation. He can take some steps proactively. So there's our few cases in particular where alienation or abduction and alienation are present.
Right. The one thing, I don't know, you probably already do this, but I get those kind of emails and comments every day through some part of our social media where parents are like so upset because it's like they're lashing out at them, and two things. It's not the child speaking, it's the alienator speaking through that child. It's not really their child talking. And the other thing is, you have to, we have to remember these children were 24/7 with these alienators, these evil people. And we don't know what they have gone through. and the brainwashing and what has entailed there. So we need to kind of step back ourselves. And I've had to tell myself this, as an alienated mom and grandmom, that you can't make it about you. It has to totally be about those babies. It cannot be about your adult child, your young child, your grandchild. It can't be about any of you. It's got to be all about them, totally, because they're the ones that had to live that. And so that is very important. And it's hard, trust me, I know, and others know, how difficult that is. But then it's good, like you said, the other people who don't have their children yet can see yet still these success stories, which is so, I know, encouraging to them that, I ain't there yet, but I'm getting there. I will be there, and I will have my babies back, and that is good that you guys have that little unit that does that. So, that's a real praise. Well, I know you've shared some, but did you want to share any more of your experiences working with families who are surviving? Or do you have anything else you want to add to that? I know you've shared some already, but that was our last question.
Sure. I guess maybe I could just make a couple of share a couple concluding ideas about this. Again, coming back to the first premise that international parental child abduction is real. It happens and is closer than we think. I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and we're kind of a quaint but growing town, and one wouldn't think that would happen here, except I just got a call last week. And so it's closer than we think. And so for again, for your listeners and viewers, it can be prevented. It doesn't have to go that far. And so if they are aware of families for which there might be risks of this, and there are definitive risks, that there is the potential for relationship breakdown, the potential abductor has resources and support in another country for which they could easily remove the children. The children have dual nationality. The passports are in the possession of the potential abducting parent. There are any number of scenarios that can happen, but it can be prevented. And the number one way to prevent it is for parents who suspect it to put safeguards in place. Among them, enrolling their children in the Passport Issuance Alert Program, enrolling them in the Department of Homeland Security's Prevent Abduction Program, for which they'll need a good court order that has travel restraint language. And so, and then talking to us, talking to other parents who, in retrospect, I saw it coming. But at the time, I didn't even know parental child abduction was a thing. But now we do, and now we have more attention and visibility to it. And so it can be prevented. I'd like people to know that. And then I would just restate that when there are the blessings of reunification, it is a lifelong process. You were 100% on point when you said, we may never know all that abducted and alienated children are going through and have experienced. As I told you at the beginning, I'm still learning things today, 10 years later, that happened to my daughter when she was in a foreign nation. And so it's very tempting to make our pain equivalent. The pain of the seeking parent, the left behind parent, the alienated parent, it's very tempting to equate our pain with theirs, but it's not. And we have agency and we have some choices and power, and our children did not. And so I think it's so important to draw upon empathy, and at a bottom line, remember that we don't know, and to approach it in that way. And I think that giving grace to our children when they shut us out, when they yell at us, when they isolate, at least we have them back. And then for those who are preparing for that wonderful day like you are, remembering when they do, let's store up that grace and store up the empathy. So when they come, it is truly all about them.
Yeah, and that's it, grace and trusting God through all of it, and praying for that strength and understanding and that peace. We had Bible study last night with our organization. We do it twice a month. And, having that peace is so important, that we get that peace from God, no matter what trial it is. We need that peace. And that's what we must pray for all of those going through this hell on earth called alienation and also abduction. I mean, I can't even put myself where you guys are. I know where mine are, but then many of you, they're in another country. Some don't even know what country, and they're in a country and you don't know anything about the country nor where in the world your baby's at, and I mean, how in the world? I can't even put myself in that spot. I just can't. I don't know. That takes much more grace than I have at this moment. But
give us grace.
It is sufficient, absolutely. But Dr. Hunter, I really appreciate you. I can't tell you how much. We don't have a lot of chance to chat because of your schedule and then mine too. But I am so grateful again for you. Is there anything else that you would like to add in closing before we leave?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to get the information out. So important, and just appreciate you and your work. And I look forward to joining you at your conference, and then certainly other opportunities for us to collaborate. You're wonderful. And, the labor of love is much noticed and much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And we're really looking forward to you joining us at our conference in October. We are thrilled that you'll be a part of that because it's called Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and the Abuse. Well, you've definitely got a lot to add to it through that part with the abduction and the alienation as well. So I want to thank you again, Dr. Hunter. God bless you and your work. Again, I hope you guys will want to be a part of this ministry because it is a ministry.
Yes, it is.
And I hope you will go ahead. Her one thing she's really wanting us to focus on is in July when they have their little outing with the babies. And I think that's a great way to help in contributing and helping them because, again, we don't know where these children have been and what they've been through, what they've been told, how they've been treated, how they've had to live, so many different things. And just for them to be able to be with other children who understand more than anybody. Unless you walk this walk, you don't get it. And just like in your alienation, those of you out there who are alienated, even some of your family members don't get it. They don't understand that walk. Unless you walk this walk, you don't truly understand. So this is a great way for these children to interact with others and build a bond with other children. So if you can help with that, I would hope that you can, even if it's just a little bit. Like I tell you guys, I don't, if you guys give $5, $10, that's like the widow's mite. And God is going to bless that and use it. And, and it's much appreciated. I know we've had several over, every month they give $10, faithful, 25, and that blesses me. I got to tell you more than the big ones we get. Hate to say it. Sorry, guys. But it really does because I know those people are struggling and they want to be a part. So if you can and you see that you're able, please help them with this and pray for them. Above all, pray for them and all that they go through and being a part of helping these families. The pain, the hurt, and it's just too much. So let's all bond together and build together a unit to where we can work hopefully one day as one to help each other. So with saying all that, we're going to close. And Dr. Hunter, I really look forward to being with you again soon. And Jeffrey Morehouse, he is a wealth of knowledge. That guy, he amazing.
He's my mentor.
I know, girl, when he was talking that, I'm sitting there going, it was just bam, just coming out. And I'm like, oh my land, he has got it going on. And he is so smart with all of this. And so you guys go to the YouTube channel and look up, Jeffrey Morehouse's presentation that he did. And he has got so much information there that can help anybody that is going through this in another country. He is a wealth of knowledge. So go back if you haven't watched it, or if you need to watch it again, go back and look at Jeffrey Morehouse's video. And also, Dr. Hunter, encourage those that you deal with to look at the videos on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
That would
Well,
help them as well. There's so many professionals and experts there that have so much knowledge to offer and give them. So encourage them to do that as well. So we're going to say, goodbye for now. And again, thank you. God bless you, honey. And love your work. Say hello to your precious daughter and that other sweet little teenage girl and that we met. And so God bless, and we'll see you again.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Dr. Noelle Hunter. I am President Emeritus and co-founder of iStand Parent Network. iStand is a voluntary nonprofit that empowers parents to return their children from International Parental Child Abduction, or IPCA. We also help parents and families prevent their children from being separated and removed from their homes to another nation through prevention and education. And importantly, we empower survivors, both youth survivors, children who are formally abducted and have come home from IPCA, and their parents. And so I'm just very pleased to be participating in this international conference, Alienation, the Truth Regarding the Trauma and Abuse. And I'll be discussing the particular intersections between parental alienation and international parental child abduction. The title of my session is Parental Alienation and International Child Abduction, Survivor Stories. And I'll be relaying the experiences of both parents and youth survivors who have experienced international parental child abduction and parental alienation. I'll first relate the experiences of parents who have successfully returned their children home from IPCA and yet have profound memories, experiences, scars, and opportunities now to heal from the trauma of seeking the return of their children and being on the receiving end of alienating behavior, both by the parent and the child or children. I'll share some of their experiences, their coping mechanisms, and importantly, how they overcame alienation to maintain a relationship with their children and to successfully return them home, and now to have a new relationship in which the trauma and the scars of alienation and abduction remain, but are also supplemented and diminished by new relationships and new loving patterns among them. And then, as importantly, I will share some of the experiences of IPCA youth survivors, children who were abducted to another nation and then returned home. I'll relate some of their experiences and what it was like to, as a matter of survival, have to conform to the alienating and abducting parents' narrative. I'll share their experiences, what it was like to engage in alienating behavior and the conflicting loyalty that they experienced when engaging with their seeking parent. And I'll share their experiences now home and what it's like to rebuild and rekindle a relationship with a parent whom they previously were alienated from. I look forward to joining you for this session, and I thank you. We'll see you soon.
In our next episode of Families Divided TV, Helene Kapajan-Lewitsa speaks to us about researching contact loss between a parent and a child.